So Rush here in the 1980s has made a change. They have gone to a sound with permanent waves that would define their next couple of years, especially with this landmark release. This one that truly would take Rush into the stratosphere, which is Moving Pictures. 2112 did a lot of great things for the band. It is widely considered to be one of the greatest albums of all time, and certainly one that has one of the best concepts. But Moving Pictures is the complete album that most people cite whenever they think of this band. Is it simply just because of the song Tom Sawyer, which is a huge smash? You still hear it in movies, it's being used in commercials, really part of the Rush revival and the Rush love that has occurred within the past 10 to 15 years, considering they've only released a couple of sparse albums here and there in that time span, has been from the generation that's kind of grew up with this, whether as a very young man or woman, either that or really literally grew up as this was being released, have brought it back and really showcased the power of this group through one of its biggest and most trademark hits. But Moving Pictures has a lot more to offer than just that. Moving Pictures is not just Tom Sawyer, and I'm going to prove, hopefully within the next few minutes, that while Tom Sawyer is an iconic song, it's not even the best track on Moving Pictures. In fact, it may end up being, by the end of this, one of the worst. I know, it's surprising. But let's examine the other 6 tracks that are on here and see what exactly is being meant by this. Let's start off with Red Barchetta, and let's talk about Limelight. These two songs that both have a core bit of power. Red Barchetta being about a car, I believe, while Limelight being a potent commentary about fame and about the way in which a celebrity was really moving in the 1980s, and really just overall a very poignant commentary on the overall kind of ridiculosity of the idea and how that thirst and quest for the limelight is what drives individuals and what drives people in this industry. And both are very well executed. In fact, both of these songs I would probably put above Tom Sawyer. Limelight especially. Even though Limelight seems like it may have a little bit more of a traditional side to it, one that is not quite as dynamic as Tom Sawyer is able to offer, I still think that it's in its simplicity, it really also has, within the past 30 years, became a poignant commentary about the simplicity of a pop song and the simplicity of what it takes in order to make it to the top of the charts. Considering this is a track that needs not be all of that ultra dynamic in order to make its point. So, in a way, from a aging commentary, Limelight is a song that has aged, in fact, much better and more gracefully than some of the other tracks that are on Moving Pictures. And it's also just one of the best. Some of the lines that this song boasts are just some of the best 1980s Rush lyrics, period. YYZ, the instrumental, is the second instrumental that we've talked about, I do believe maybe the third, but it's one that also has a lot of poignancy to it, to the point where this one is oftentimes looked at and studied and seen as one of their best, one of the highlights, the pinnacles of the Rush discography, something that a lot of folks look and aim to cover, they look and aim to replicate. It's seen as a titanic work of terrific craftsmanship as far as music is concerned, and it's one that I have to agree with. Now, Tom Sawyer may get a pass on this one simply because YYZ doesn't have lyrical content to really add something to the story. However, it doesn't get a pass because YYZ's musical story is one that is just fantastically done. And then we get to Camera Eye. This is an 11-minute and 1 second long track of pure Rush majesty. This is almost like seeing Rush take some of their 1970s idealisms and bringing them into the 1980s, stripping them down a little bit and not being quite as overindulgent, almost as though they found a fantastic middle ground between the two and delivered just a pretty awesome 11-minute epic. This is one that's so easy to listen to. It's got a lot of boombastic flair to it, and it also seems to have just all of the right moves in all of the right places as far as the musicality is concerned. There's a reason why this album is iconic. It's because there is no bad song on it. It's a solid listen from head to toe. Moving into Witch Hunt, which is part 3 of Fear, which Fear is a very confusing series if you really want to be technical with it. It's really one that you will have to do the research on, but this is also one that is very poignantly done. It's one that is a little bit softer, a little bit quieter, but then has dynamic escalation that occurs throughout its song. There is a repeated theme that you hear in this song that is very hard to get out of your head, and it is a driving force of what makes this a magnificent and often overlooked song in the Rush catalog. This is one that needs more listens. Give it one today, and I guarantee you're going to really either spark something. If you've listened to this album before, you're going to be like, yeah, I remember hearing this and thinking, damn, this is pretty good. Either that, or it's going to be something where you'll be humming it later and you won't know why. Vital Signs is a track that, as a closer, may be the only song that Tom Sawyer is truly better than. While Vital Signs is a really, really good closer, it just doesn't seem to have that same oomph and punch. This almost feels like it's on there, really in the best of places as a finale. Typically you say leave on your best foot, but there have been no bad foots on this disc, and Vital Signs, once again, is not a bad foot whatsoever. There have been much worse songs delivered by this band, and trust me, there would be much worse that would be delivered by this band in the future. But either way, Vital Signs closes an otherwise iconic album on a foot that may not necessarily be on the same top tier level. But Moving Pictures has its reputation as one of the most iconic discs of all time for fantastic reason. As stated previously, this is a disc that has no duds. It's one that kicks on all cylinders and really delivers what should really have been the iconic and, very well-known Rush experience in the 1980s, but instead this was one that was kind of a short-lived love, but really hooked a lot of fans. The 80s material from here on out for Rush, as we're going to examine, had to really undergo many phases prior to smoothing out a little bit and finally leading to some things to happen within the band. But Moving Pictures is seen by many as the last great triumph of this group, which is one that I'm going to disagree with, considering there are some things to come that we will examine that will feel like triumphs, even though perhaps in the eyes of bigwigs they were not. But Moving Pictures is the iconic album, the sales-moving album, the units-moving album, should I say, the one that had poignant social commentary about celebrity and brought Rush celebrity. A strange irony, perhaps, but this is the one that really and truthfully delivered Rush to the world. This is the one that brought Rush to everybody's homes. The one that truly gives them the iconic status that has led them to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, even though every album we've spoken to previously has no doubt enhanced their legend, even though just 1 year or 2 years prior to this album being released, these were the albums that were building the legend from the ground up. So now we have to go forward. We have to move past one of the most iconic albums of rock and roll history, progressive music history. Some might even say heavy metal history. Some may even go that bold with it. Whatever it may be, whatever you consider such a thing. Moving Pictures is an album that certainly lives up to all of the hype that's given to it. It's not an album where it has been brandished a lot of unnecessary kudos by perhaps an aging generation that doesn't translate well into today's society. It translates just as well as it did whenever it was first released. It may not seem as forward-thinking right now in 2016, 2015, whatever year we're in, but instead it is one that doesn't have that same, iconic, or that same forward-thinking feel, because this is one of the albums that has inspired and really enhanced the sound for so many bands. It has been the influence. So let's move forward into the 1980s. Let's leave this bright, bright star behind and see what happens next.